Good morning, listening squirrels. How are you? This story today is from Damon Runyon, and it was first published in 1938, and it's called Dancing Dan's Christmas. I should have cleaned my glasses. Oh, mercy. I've been trying to get the tax office on the phone. Waited 25 minutes. I'm just going to have to go by there. I was hoping I could just make a call. They make everything so difficult. Anyway, Dancing Dan's Christmas. Now, one time it comes on Christmas, and in fact it is the evening before Christmas, and I am in Good Time Charlie Bernstein's little speakeasy in West 47th Street, wishing Charlie a Merry Christmas and having a few hot Tom and Jerry's with him. This hot Tom and Jerry is an old-timey drink that is once used by one and all in this country to celebrate Christmas with. And in fact, it is once so popular that many people think Christmas is invented only to furnish an excuse for hot Tom and Jerry's. Although, of course, this is by no means true. But anybody will tell you that there is nothing that brings out the true holiday spirit like hot Tom and Jerry. And I hear that since Tom and Jerry goes out of style in the United States, the holiday spirit is never quite the same. The reason hot Tom and Jerry goes out of style is because it's necessary to use rum and one thing and another in making Tom and Jerry. And naturally, when rum becomes illegal in this country, Tom and Jerry is also against the law, because rum is something that's very hard to get around town these days. For a while, some people try making Tom and Jerry without putting rum in it, but somehow it never has the same old holiday spirit. So nearly everybody finally gives up in disgust, and this is not surprising, as making Tom and Jerry is by no means child's play. In fact, it takes quite an expert to make good Tom and Jerry. And in the days when it is not illegal, a good hot Tom and Jerry maker commands good wages and many friends. Now, of course, Good Time Charlie and I are not using rum in the Tom and Jerry we are making, as we do not wish to do anything illegal. What we are using is rye whiskey that Good Time Charlie gets on doctor's prescription from the drugstore, as we are personally drinking this hot Tom and Jerry, and naturally we are not foolish enough to use any of Good Time Charlie's own rye in it. The prescription for the rye whiskey comes from old Doc Moggs, who prescribes it for Good Time Charlie's rheumatism, in case Charlie happens to get rheumatism. As Doc Moggs says, there's nothing better for rheumatism than rye whiskey, especially if it's made up in hot Tom and Jerry. In fact, old Doc Moggs comes around and has a few SEIDELs of hot Tom and Jerry with us for his own rheumatism. He comes around during the afternoon for Good Time Charlie, and I start making this Tom and Jerry early in the day so as to be sure to have enough to last us over Christmas. And it is now along towards 6 o'clock, and our holiday spirit is practically 100%. Well, as Good Time Charlie and I are expressing our holiday sentiments to each other over our hot Tom and Jerry, I'm trying to think up a poem about the night before Christmas, and all through the house, which I know will interest Charlie no little. All of a sudden there's a big knock at the front door. And when Charlie opens the door, who comes in carrying a large package under one arm but a guy by the name of Dancing Dan? This Dancing Dan is a good-looking young guy who always seems well-dressed, and he's called by the name of Dancing Dan because he's a great hand for dancing around and about with dolls and nightclubs and other spots where there is any dancing. In fact, Dan never seems to be doing anything else, although I hear rumors that when he's not dancing, he's carrying on in a most illegal manner at one thing or another. But of course, you can always hear rumors in this town about anybody, and personally, I'm rather fond of Dancing Dan, as he always seems to be getting a great belt out of life. Anybody in town will tell you that Dancing Dan is a guy with no Barnaby whatever in him, and in fact, he has about as much gizzard as anybody around. Although I wish to say I always question his judgment in dancing so much with Miss Muriel O'Neill, who works in the Half Moon nightclub, and the reason I question his judgment in this respect is because everybody knows that Miss Muriel O'Neill is a doll who's very well thought of by Heinz Schmitz, and Heinz Schmitz is not such a guy as will take kindly to anybody dancing more than once and a half with a doll that he thinks well of. This Heinz Schmitz is a very influential citizen of Harlem, where he has large interest in beer and other business enterprises, and it's by no means violating any confidence to tell you that Heinz Schmitz will just as soon blow your brains out as look at you. In fact, I hear sooner. Anyway, he's not a guy to monkey with, and many citizens take the trouble to advise Dancing Dan that he is not only way out of line in dancing with Miss Muriel O'Neill, but that he is knocking his own price down to where he is at no price at all. But Dancing Dan only laughs, ha ha, and goes on dancing with Miss Muriel O'Neill any time he gets the chance. And Good Time Charlie says he doesn't blame him at that, as Miss Muriel O'Neill is so beautiful that he will be dancing with her himself no matter what. If he's 5 years younger and can get a Roscoe out as fast as in the days when he runs with Patty the Link and other fast guys. Well, anyway, as Dancing Dan comes in, he weighs up the joint in one quick peek, and then he tosses the package he's carrying into a corner where it goes plunk, as if there is something very heavy in it. Then he steps up to the bar alongside of Charlie and me and wishes to know what we're drinking. Naturally, we start boosting Hot Tom and Jerry to Dancing Dan, and he says he will take a crack at it with us, and after one crack, Dancing Dan says he will have another crack and Merry Christmas to us with it. And the first thing anybody knows, it's a couple hours later, and we're still having cracks at the Hot Tom and Jerry with Dancing Dan. And Dan says he never drinks anything so soothing in his life. In fact, Dancing Dan says he will recommend Tom and Jerry to everybody he knows. Only he does not know anybody good enough for Tom and Jerry, except maybe Miss Muriel O'Neill, for she does not drink anything with drugstore rye in it. Well, several times while we're drinking this Tom and Jerry, customers come to the door of Good Time Charlie's little speakeasy and knock. But by now, Charlie is commencing to be afraid they will wish Tom and Jerry too, and he does not feel we will have enough for ourselves, so he hangs out a sign which says, "Closed on account of Christmas." And the only one he will let in is a guy by the name of Ookie, who is nothing but an old rum-dum, and who is going around all week dressed like Santa Claus and carrying a sign advertising Mo Lewinsky's clothing joint around in 6th Avenue. This Ookie is still wearing his Santa Claus outfit when Charlie lets him in, and the reason Charlie permits such a character as Ookie in his joint is because Ookie does the porter work for Charlie when he's not Santa Claus for Mo Lewinsky, such as sweeping out, washing the glasses, and, one thing and another. Well, it's about 9:30 when Ookie comes in, and his puppies are aching. He's all petered out generally for walking up and down and here and there with the sign. For any time a guy is Santa Claus for Mo Lewinsky, he must earn his dough. In fact, Ookie is so fatigued that his puppies hurt him so much that Dancing Dan And Good Time Charlie and I all feel sorry for him and invite him to have a few mugs of hot Tom and Jerry with us, and wish him plenty of Merry Christmas. But old Ookie is not accustomed to Tom and Jerry, and after about the 5th mug, he folds up in a chair and goes right to sleep on us. He is wearing a pretty good Santa Claus makeup, what with a nice red suit trimmed with white cotton and a wig and false nose and long white whiskers and a big sack stuffed with excelsior on his back. If I do not know Santa Claus is not apt to be such a guy as will snore loud enough to rattle the windows, I will think Ookie is Santa Claus sure enough. Well, we forget Ookie and let him sleep and go on with our hot Tom and Jerry, and in the meantime we try to think up a few songs appropriate to Christmas. And Dancing Dan finally renders My Dad's Dinner Pail in a nice baritone and very loud, while I do first rate with Will You Love Me in December as You Do in May. But personally, I always think Good Time Charlie Bernstein is a little out of line trying to sing a hymn in Jewish on such an occasion, and it causes words between us. While we're singing, many customers come to the door and knock and then read Charlie's sign, and this seems to cause some unrest among them. And some of them stand outside saying it's a great outrage until Charlie sticks his noggin out the door and threatens to bust somebody's beezer if they do not go about their business and stop disturbing peaceful citizens. Naturally, the customers go away as they do not wish their beezers busted, and Dancing Dan and Charlie and I continue drinking along about midnight. Dancing Dan wishes to see how he looks as Santa Claus, so Good Time Charlie and I help Dancing Dan pull off Ookie's outfit and put it on Dan. And this is easy, as Ookie only has the Santa Claus outfit on over his ordinary clothes, and he does not even wake up when we're undressing him of the Santa Claus uniform. Well, I wish to say I see many a Santa Claus in my time, but I never see a better looking Santa than Dancing Dan, especially after he gets the wig and white whiskers fixed just right. And we put up a sofa pillow that Good Time Charlie happens to have around the joint for the cat to sleep on down his pants to give Dancing Dan a nice fat stomach such as Santa Claus is bound to have. Well, Charlie finally says it's a great pity we do not know where there are some stockings hung up somewhere, because then, he says, you can go around and stuff things in these stockings, as I always hear this is the main idea of a Santa Claus. But, Charlie says, I do not suppose anybody in this section has any stockings hung up, or if they have, he says, the chances are they're so full of holes they will not hold anything. Anyway, Charlie says, even if there are any stockings hung up, we do not have anything to stuff in them, although personally, he says, I will gladly donate a few pints of scotch. Well, I'm pointing out that we have no reindeer, and that Santa Claus is bound to look like a terrible sap if he goes around without any reindeer. But Charlie's remarks seem to give Dancing Dan an idea, for all of a sudden he speaks as follows. Why, Dancing Dan says, I know where a stocking is hung up. It's hung up at Miss Muriel O'Neill's flat over here in West 49th Street. This stocking is hung up by nobody but a party by the name of Gammer O'Neill, who's Miss Muriel O'Neill's grandmama. Dancing Dan says, Gammer O'Neill is going on 90 odd, and Miss Muriel O'Neill told me she cannot hold out much longer, what with one thing and another, including being a little childish in spots. Now, Dancing Dan says, I remember Miss Muriel O'Neill is telling me just the other night how Gammer O'Neill hangs up her stocking on Christmas Eve all her life. And, he says, I judge from what Miss Muriel O'Neill says that the old doll always believes Santa Claus will come along one Christmas and filled the stocking full of beautiful gifts. Sorry, lost my spot. But Dancing Dan says Miss Muriel O'Neill tells me Santa Claus never does, though Miss Muriel O'Neill personally always takes a few gifts home and puts them into the stocking to make Gamma O'Neill feel better. But of course, Dancing Dan says, these gifts are nothing much because Miss Muriel O'Neill is very poor and proud and also good and will not take a dime off of anybody, and I can lick the guy who says she will. Now, Dancing Dan goes on, it seems that while Gamma O'Neill is very happy to get whatever she finds in her stocking on Christmas morning, she does not understand why Santa Claus is not more liberal. And he says Miss Muriel O'Neill is saying to me that she only wishes she can give Gamma O'Neill one real big Christmas before the old doll puts her cheeks back in the rack. Checks. Not cheeks. Checks back in the rack. So, Dancing Dan states, here's a job for us. Miss Muriel O'Neill and her grandmama live all alone in this flat over in West 49th Street, and he says, at such an hour as this, Miss Muriel O'Neill is bound to be working, and the chances are Gamma O'Neill is sound asleep and will just hop over there, and Santa Claus will fill up her stocking with beautiful gifts. Well, I say, I do not see where we're going to get any beautiful gifts at this time of night, what with all the stores being closed, unless we dash into an all-night drugstore and buy a few bottles of perfume and a bum toilet set, is guys always do when they forget about their ever-loving wives until after store hours on Christmas Eve. That's what they get, I guess. But Dancing Dan says, never mind about this, but let us have a few more Tom and Jerry's first. So we have a few more Tom and Jerry's, and then Dancing Dan picks up the package. He heaves into the corner and dumps most of the Excelsior out of Ookie's Santa sack and puts the bundle in. And Good Time Charlie turns out the lights, but one, and leaves a bottle of scotch on the table in front of Ookie for a Christmas gift, and away we go. Personally, I regret very much leaving the hot Tom and Jerry, but then I'm also very enthusiastic about going along to help Dancing Dan play Santa Claus, while Good Time Charlie's practically overjoyed, as it's the first time in his life Charlie is ever mixed up in so much holiday spirit. As we go up Broadway, headed for 49th Street, Charlie and I see many citizens we know and give them a large hello and wish them Merry Christmas. And some of these citizens shake hands with Santa Claus, not knowing he's a nobody but Dancing Dan. He is nobody but Dancing Dan. Although later I understand there's some gossip among these citizens because they claim a Santa Claus with such a breath on him as our Santa Claus has is a little out of line. And once we were somewhat embarrassed with a lot of little kids going home with their parents from a late Christmas party, somehow gather about Santa Claus with shouts of childish glee. And some of them wish to climb up Santa Claus's legs. Naturally, Santa Claus gets a little peevish and calls them a few names. And one of the parents comes up and wishes to know what's the idea of Santa Claus using such language. And Santa takes a punch at the parent, all of which is no doubt astonishing to the little kids, who have an idea of Santa Claus as a very kindly old guy. Oh, me. Have a little swig of my triple C. This is some story, huh? Little kids who have... Okay. Well, finally we arrive in front of the place where Dancing Dan says Miss Muriel O'Neill and her grandmama live. It's nothing but a tenement house not far back off Madison Square Garden, and furthermore, it's a walk-up. And at this time, there are no lights burning in the joint except the gas jet in the main hall, and by the light of this jet, we look at the names on the letter boxes, such as you always find in the halls of these joints, and we see that Miss Muriel O'Neill and her grandmama live on the 5th floor. This is the top floor, and personally, I do not like the idea of walking up 5 flights of stairs. And I'm willing to let Dancing Dan and Good Time Charlie go, but Dancing Dan insists we all must go. And finally, I agree with them because Charlie is commencing to argue that the right way for us to do this is to get on the roof and let Santa Claus go down a chimney. And it's making so much noise, I'm afraid he'll wake somebody up. So up the stairs we climb, and finally we come to a door on the top floor that has a little card in a slot that says O'Neill. So we know that we have reached our destination. Dancing Dan first tries the knob, and right away the door opens, and we're in a little 2 or 3 room flat with not much furniture in it. And what furniture there is very poor. One single gas jet is burning near a bed in a room just off the one the door opens into, and by this light we see a very old doll is sleeping on the bed, so we judge this is nobody but Gammer O'Neill. On her face is a large smile as if she's dreaming of something very pleasant. On a chair at the head of her bed is hung a long black stocking, and it seems to be such a stocking as it's often patched and mended, so I can see that what Miss Muriel O'Neill tells Dancing Dan about her grandmama hanging up her stocking is really true, although up to this time I have my doubts. Finally, Dancing Dan unslings the sack on his back and takes out his package and unties this package, and all of a sudden out pops a raft of big diamond bracelets and diamond rings and diamond brooches and diamond necklaces, and I do not know what else in the way of diamonds. Dancing Dan and I begin stuffing these diamonds into the stocking, and Good Time Charlie pitches in and helps us. There are enough diamonds to fill the stocking to the muzzle, and it's no small stocking at that, and I judge that Gammer O'Neill has a pretty fair set of bunting sticks when she is young. In fact, there are so many diamonds that we have enough left over to make a nice little pile on the chair after we still fill the stocking plumb up, leaving a nice diamond-studded vanity case sticking out of the top where we figure it will hit Gammer O'Neill's eye when she wakes up. And it's not until I get out in the fresh air again that all of a sudden I remember seeing large headlines in the afternoon papers about a 500 G's stick-up in the afternoon of one of the biggest diamond merchants in Maiden Lane while he is sitting in his office. And I also recall once hearing rumors that Dancing Dan is one of the best lone hand get-em-up guys in the world. Naturally, I commence to wonder if I'm in the proper company when I'm with Dancing Dan, even if he is Santa Claus. So I leave him on the next corner arguing with Good Time Charlie about whether they ought to go and find some more presents somewhere and look for other stockings to stuff, and I hasten on home and go to bed. The next day I find I have such a noggin that I do not got a hangover, that I do not care to stir around. And in fact, I do not stir around much for a couple of weeks. Then one night I drop around to Good Time Charlie's little speakeasy and ask Charlie what is doing. Well, Charlie says many things are doing, and personally, he says, I'm greatly surprised I do not see you at Gamma O'Neill's wake. Oh, she passed. You know, Gamma O'Neill leaves this wicked old world a couple of days after Christmas, Good Time Charlie says, and he says, Miss Muriel O'Neill states that Doc Moggs claims it is at least a day after she is entitled to go, but she is sustained, Charlie says, by great happiness in finding her stocking filled with beautiful gifts on Christmas morning. According to Miss Muriel O'Neill, Charlie says, Gamma O'Neill dies practically convinced that there is a Santa Claus, although, of course, he says, Miss Muriel O'Neill does not tell her the real owner of the gifts. An all-right guy by the name of Shapiro leaves the gifts with her after Miss Muriel O'Neill notifies him of finding of same. It seems, Charlie says, this Shapiro is a tender-hearted guy who is willing to help keep Gamma O'Neill with us a little longer when Doc Moggs says leaving the gifts with her will do it. So, Charlie says, everything is quite all right, as the coppers cannot figure anything except that maybe the rascal who takes the gifts from Shapiro gets conscience-stricken and leaves them the first place he can, and Miss Muriel O'Neill receives a 10 G's reward for finding the gifts and returning them. And, Charlie says, I hear Dancing Dan is in San Francisco and is figuring on reforming and becoming a dance teacher so he can marry Miss Muriel O'Neill. And, of course, he says, we all hope and trust she never learns any details of Dancing Dan's career. Well, it's Christmas Eve a year later that I run into a guy by the name of Shotgun Sam, who is mobbed up with Heinz Schmitz in Harlem and who is a very, very obnoxious character indeed. Well, 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 Shotgun says, the last time I see you is another Christmas like this and you're coming out of Good Time Charlie's joint. And he says, you certainly have your pots on. Well, Shotgun, I says, I'm sorry you get such a wrong impression of me, but the truth is, I say, on the occasion you speak of, I'm suffering from a dizzy feeling in my head. It's all right with me, Shotgun says. I have a tip this guy Dancing Dan is in Good Time Charlie's the night I see you, and Mikey Morgan and Gunner Jack and me are casing the joint because, he says, Heinz Schmitz is all sored up at Dan over some doll, although, of course, Shotgun says it's all right now as Heinz has another doll. Anyway, he says, we never get to see Dancing Dan. We watch the joint from 6:30 in the evening until daylight Christmas morning. And nobody goes in all night but old Ookie, the Santa Claus guy, in his Santa Claus makeup. And, Shotgun says, nobody comes out except you and Good Time Charlie and Ookie. Well, Shotgun says, it's a great break for Dancing Dan. He never goes in or comes out of Good Time Charlie's at that because, he says, we're waiting for him on the second floor front of the building across the way with some nice little sawed-offs and are under orders from Hein not to miss. Well, Shotgun, I say, Merry Christmas. Well, all right, Shotgun says, Merry Christmas. That's it. That was strange. Okay, I don't know what we'll read next, but we'll find something. There's lots more Christmas stories, and I'll just keep reading them till at least the end of the month. All right, love you bunches. Hope you have a wonderful Monday, and today's Tuesday. See you in the YouTube streets. Be sweet, don't be ugly. Bye-bye.